Welcome to WTP Rebel Thought podcast, and tonight I'm joined with my good friend Terence, who's normally behind the camera, but he's a wealth of information, and we're going to talk about what's going on lately. There's 1,000 things we can talk about. I think today, being the day, we'd have to talk first about, we'll start with Putin. What are your thoughts on the interview?
Mm-hmm. Well, it was an interesting interview to start with anyway, but it is what we're shown. It was great. I watched from start to finish, and you have to take it with everything with a pinch of salt. So it's good to see the propaganda from the other side for a while. It could be everything in it could be truthful or whatever else, but we always remember it's an ex-CIA agent sitting on one side and an ex-KGB agent sitting on the other, so they're experts at maybe fooling us. But it was, a lot of the stuff did seem fairly sensible, even the way he started.
Did you learn anything from it? Did you hear anything new that you didn't already know?
That's nothing massive jumped out where that. Yeah. It was mostly, it was repeating, start off with history, so he established why he got to where they were getting to.
Yeah, he went back to the year 800, didn't he?
He went back a fair bit. It's arresting.
Not bitter at all.
Yes. So it did go back a fair bit, but they did bring up a few points, and I think they even hinted at a hostage exchange at the end of it, where they were handing over somebody who said he was a financial analyst or something like that, or a journalist from the financial side, and Putin had hinted that maybe they could offer somebody from that the CIA was looking after at the moment, and they could do maybe a bridge of spies type of thing where they could hand each other over. So there's a few interesting things in there. Yeah,
I kind of was sure we'll see what happens kind of an answer. My thought, when I listened to it, I was expecting huge things. And I kind of thought, if they had to talk Putin out of the chair and put me in it, I could have said all the same things. The only thing that I learned from it was that there's 4 pipelines in Nord Stream, and that Germany then can still be switched back on. I didn't know that. But other than that, when he went through the history, he kind of started the history from 1992 would be the current history that, so I knew all that. I knew that, when he was asked about who blew up Nord Stream, you're like, well, we all know that, And then, what else was he talked a little bit about de-dollarization again. We all know that. So there was nothing in it. BRICS, we all know that. There was nothing in it that really was hard hitting that you could walk away with. And when you consider that it's mostly going to be people like us that are watching it, there was absolutely nothing about it. So I kind of got the way, tinfoil tingling feeling. And what isn't being talked about, the only thing that I kind of, obviously it only came out today, so, but China, the stock market in China is just tumbling, and nobody's talking about that, and they're trying to pump in billions to kind of prop it up, or it's that idea that they're going to buy it all in order to keep it going, but nobody's talking about that. But yeah, I wasn't impressed with it at all. I didn't learn anything from it.
Even with all the different subjects they had, like the pipeline, absolutely yes, whoever blew up the pipeline, very likely it's not going to be Putin. It's his pipeline. Yeah, it's his source of money. But we don't even know if it was blown up. All you were ever shown was a lot of bubbles coming up in the middle of the ocean. It could be anything. They had a tap at the Russian side. They had a tap at the German side. And strange enough, the week before, they had a new pipeline that could supply the exact same amount into Germany. And strange enough, this pipeline gets blown up. Or they set off something to release a lot of bubbles and told us that the pipeline had blown up, and then made a lot of money from selling oil through the very same pipeline. You never know.
Could well be, because the other thing he mentioned was the Boris Johnson going over.
Yes.
Which again, if you spend 5 minutes on the internet, you can, Bennett has come out and said that the Israel that was brought in to kind of mediate an agreement. And I think whoever was involved with Ukraine has also come out and said, we had signed off on it, and Biden's handlers sent Boris Johnson into whatever offer I guess Zelensky was made. It was lucrative enough for him to take the offer off the table. So yeah, completely underwhelmed about it, but I suspect that there's going to be an end to it relatively soon, so that would be beneficial to put that out. And probably we land grab in the middle of that, and then we'll talk no more about it, because if you think what's happening in China and their stock market is crumbling, which is attached because there was a court ruling that Evergrande had to dissolve, so their property market's crumbling along with it. That's everybody's saving. So you have stock and you have property. That's where anybody who's any wealth has their wealth stored. That's going to create panic crisis. They have put a hold on a lot of stocks that you can't sell them in order to try and stem what's happening. But here, wouldn't it be great then if they had a wee war with Taiwan and then nobody would be talking?
Great would smooth over that. That would cover it all. A nice little bandage or a bridge over to something else.
Yeah.
And whether it's true or not, it's only one of the things you've seen, but in China they're saying that the one-child policy is now backfired because they've had a generation or two.
Oh, the demographic. Huge demographic issue.
So now it's a heavily towards an elderly population and a younger population, so there's a massive gap that's going to come through where there's a void, where they don't have people to work to pay off all the pensions and whatever else.
I think it's currently there because I read before that, say, a 20-something in China, they don't want to go out and work because there's no social security or benefits or anything like that there. So they have to support like parents, possibly grandparents, or two sets of parents, if it's husband and wife. So there's no incentive for them to go out and work because you're just working to feed everybody else and you can't get ahead. It's just to keep your head above water. So we'll see what happens there. And then you have the American elections. Have you looked at any of that?
I like looking at stuff at our own doorstep, but yes, the American you can't help but look at it. It's everywhere, and you keep seeing the same patterns and the same sides.
It's only a game show.
Aye. You have it seems to be no matter what. You'll be given some people who will point towards our side and will have sense and talk a lot of release a lot of facts and things like that, and you'll see what's going on. But it's only one or two politicians. The same as here. You maybe have one or two politicians that keep you informed of what's actually going on.
Yeah.
But then they swap around, like you say, they go to China or go to Israel or go to whatever, Syria, Yemen, and that same politician that was speaking the same language is now speaking the other side of the hymn sheet in a different subject. So you like you say, you got they may be telling us a little story, to keep us happy, and they just keep that story moving. People will catch on eventually.
Oh, it's going to be, very watchable. Who do you think is going to be running against? Well, it's going to be Trump. Who's going to be running against him?
Well, you have all the big names, Trump and Kennedy, and then you've got Biden. Biden's obviously not going to win. He'll have trouble.
If he makes it that far.
Yes, if he makes it that far, he's just scraping by as it is. It's like they show he is talking from cards. If you set him down like that, Putin, whatever you think of Putin, he sat and he rhymed off whatever history, sharp. And
I'd love to see Biden do that.
Aye, he's all there. Biden
give us a 30-minute monologue about American history.
Aye.
Jesus.
And he'd be asking for ice cream and talking about hairy legs. So it's crazy. So they're not like flick. So it highlights how, in reality, the American president is not a leader. He's a puppet that's set up there and what's in behind. So you always look in behind who's really calling the shots in behind that. And I'm not an expert in American politics.
Well, there's always a layer above, because I was thinking about it. Okay, so there was the 1987 Brundtland report that said that basically power was going to be transferred from the polluting West to the East, namely India and China. And this was in 1987, long before the idea of BRICS was formed. So that's the level of above that are controlling the undercurrent of everything. And who's further ahead in CBDCs? It's the BRICS nations. They're way ahead. India has the Aadhaar, and if you even look at Ukraine, it was the trialling ground. It brought in the Dia app, and it was like a couple of months after he got in, Dia app comes out. And then there's war, crisis, everybody has to get it. 65% of adults are now using it. So, but anyway, the BRICS are way ahead with the credits and the CBDC. But if you were the level above that were pulling the strings, would you transfer power? Would you keep power in the West, where we believe we're in some kind of a democracy, or would you move power to the East, where they're already communist anyway? So it's like it's a short step into CBDC totalitarian control. So that's what I think. But I do have a theory about who's going to be. I think it's going to be Michelle.
Oh,
Michael.
yes.
Yeah.
Big Mike.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was told that apparently this is now starting to come out. My theory is that it'll be for the sake of America, to save us from the demon Trump. This is how I imagine the soap opera's going to play out. To save us from the demon Trump, Barack will, I think he has put out a poll now, tendering, is there an interest in Michelle? And for the good of her country, she will step forward. And then you have the Trump vote against the virtue vote. And that's how I imagine that script is going to go. And we'll see how it plays out.
Mm-hmm. It definitely is. They're using a lot of the spoiling techniques at the minute. You had that, I'm not good with the names, Vivek or one of the other ones that were on Trump's side. So I thought he was being brought in to absorb some of the votes that would have went for Trump. And then you've got Kennedy as well coming in.
He's authentic.
He's, yes, on the sides in his history with taking pharmaceutical companies to task for what they were doing and actually taking them through courts. So has experience there, but then you move on to another subject, maybe like Palestine, and he maybe is...
I wouldn't agree with all of his policies,
Right, so it's an indication towards where his allegiances may also lie in behind.
Yeah.
So it's up until that point, it was like, yes, everything, and now I have to take a wee breath and think about,
I think the benefit with Trump is that he wasn't a war president. And there's quite a possibility of a war in Taiwan, and America will be involved in that because they do produce semiconductors. So that's kind of important. But there's like 1,400 of them in a car, so we're going to have to go in and create some freedom in the semiconductor land now that we've got all the freedom in the oil lands. So we'll see what happens, and then we have Stormont back up. Yay! Yep. We're saved.
It's funny, as soon as somebody rattles a purse, they all appear. They all come out of the woodwork. It's what is payday? Hold on a second. So we have to justify our. There's somebody mentioning money. We're going to get 4 billion, or we're going to get whatever billion it was, and suddenly, the woodwork creaks. Out they come, and they've done nothing but damage over the last while. Even the latest one, the one everybody knew about with Loch Ness, with the green algae and stuff, and then that was just let's cut down a whack of trees. A lot of the tannin goes into the loch, shut down the gates for a while, make it stagnate, grows this. Everybody can see it's very visible. We can talk about it. And then next minute, we have to privatise the loch. We take it off whoever it is, Lord or Neil. And that'll be privatised, and that'll bring the way in for fracking or whatever. They'll use it as a money-making exercise or a way to hide, offset some debt and put it into the loch. And so it's in the background. They've been signing things like that. We're bringing it into reality. Without mentioning a thing, nobody knows about it.
Yeah, it's the land grab. It's always something. Because I was thinking about that with the farmers that are being paid right now to do nothing. If you think about that further down the line, if you have all of this land and they're giving you money to do nothing on it, well then you're actually explicitly saying this land, I do nothing with it. It's not important. It's not usable.
I'm non-essential.
Yeah, so then it can be, we're buying this land now off of you with money that we create out of thin air. We're buying the land off you, an actual asset, because you don't use it for farming, and it's just a wee green area, so we're just going to create green belts everywhere, and we just own everything. And I think that's what they're walking into. But there is the farming.
Absolutely.
There's the pushback now. All over Europe, and there was one in Dublin, I think. There was I was looking to work at around a slurry tank. You have to love the French.
I go down for a drive, yes.
Love the French.
Just reverse up and dump everything in.
Wouldn't you love to see that at Stormont?
Oh, it'd be fantastic.
There's all that stuff you talk.
Well, half of like your wee man Robin Swan, the two birds.
Yeah.
No, he's a farmer, so he'd be happy, in the middle of it. But it's crazy what's happening at the minute. But what we're being shown all the time on the media and things like that on TV. The older generation, they watch the TV and that's all they see. They know nothing about what's actually happening in the background. So they have to create those stories. The farmers, fantastic. They're fighting, trying to bring attention to what's happening to them. People don't realise that once the farmers are gone, what are we going to eat? Once you can't feed yourself and everything has to be brought in by ships, then it's a repeat of recent Irish history, where it's...
Because there was no famine, there was plenty of food.
Yeah, Ireland was a net exporter of food during the entire time of the... what I always say, there never was a famine. There was a potato blight. Yeah. One crop was affected.
But we were so dependent on potatoes for nutrition.
Well, there was certain demographic had to do that, and then any other crops they had to put towards
pretty much a feudal system.
Yes.
Which is where we're being moved back into. So, you'd want to take control. My theory is the Kissinger quote, where if you control the food, you control the people. If you control the energy, you control the nation. If you control the money, you control the world. Mm-hmm. If you know that you're losing control of the monetary system, you're going to have to go back into controlling energy, which is what this whole green transition is about. It's actually just getting control over a major resource. That's what the sustainability goal is. And control the food. Because if you don't, you're going to lose control of everybody. So I would anticipate that, and that's why I think that the farmers are really being challenged right now, so that we can eat the bugs and live in the pods.
And they have to constantly tool up by the latest machine, the latest one, or that to tick a certain box on a certain government piece of paper. You must do this to be environmentally friendly. You must have this tractor that's controlled by satellite, and they can switch it on and off and know you're spraying in the wrong area. You should be spraying here. Yeah. Even the fields that are, if you drive home tonight, look at the fields in the way and you'll see it's mostly grass. What are we growing? It's growing to feed cows and sheep, but they're telling you now they have to get rid of the cows. So if the grass isn't there to feed the cows, what exactly is it we're producing here in one of the most fertile countries in the world?
But then what's going to happen to the grass? Because it's just going to... I mean, I have land that I give to a local farmer because it's a fair exchange, no robbery. You have the land for it to graze your animals. He has cows and sheep, and I get the land kept tidy. So I mean, it's functional as well, but there's no logic to any of it. It's the same thing with the war. Like, what's your theory of what wars are for? Like, why do you think the NATO expansion? What do you think it's actually about?
It's pretty much back to everything you're saying. It's land grab. It is. Wars are always there. It's like people say, no, Putin's the enemy. USA is good, UK is good, and everyone else. They're the largest weapons manufacturer and dealer in the world is USA. Up until recently, it was followed by Russia. Now they can only make money from war. So they need a war, but they can't have a war against each other. So it must be somewhere else. If you look at the map, Russia and America are only 22 a diameter, whatever it is, or a little diameter. They're only about 22 miles apart. They could easily have a wee scrap with each other, but they don't want that. There's no profit fighting with each other. So they have to get another country to take the bill. So let's go to, say, Ukraine, one of the breadbasket of Europe. Let's have a wee fight there. Before it even started, I says that you have the river up the middle of it. And they'll just start at the bottom at Crimea, and they'll just pull it like a zip, where this side will be Russian, this side will be Ukrainian, and then you'll have the war, you'll sell all the weapons, then you'll come in as a peacekeeping force, and you'll have a civil war for the next 20 years where they can keep supplying. And who's going to pay for it? Well, the Ukrainian people will pay for it. Their land, their commodities, their minerals below the ground will be mined and extracted to pay the bill, to pay for the weapons that are being imported in. So it's
to kill them.
To kill them. Aye, they're actually grabbing people off the streets, conscripts in their country, and I'm sure it'll be a certain political slant. We'll be grabbing all the Christians or whatever in this country. Well, over here we'll be grabbing all, and they'll just decimate the country by bringing the people into war, and they'll have to fight it. And it really is, again, for a rich man's war. It's so they can make money. I have
boys fighting a rich man's war.
Yeah, I have no problem with anybody in Ukraine. I'd have a hard time actually telling you if I've ever met somebody from Ukraine. There's no reason I would want to go and kill or send my son to kill somebody in Ukraine or anything else. So
they're not getting my son.
No.
Yeah. I think that's before they could sell people on patriotism. They're going to have a hard job with conscription this time, because people know that's the double-edged sword of the internet. They need the internet to control us, but people can go out and get the information. So they're going to have to come for me before they come for my son, and I mean that. Absolutely not. My son's not going to, I'm not offering him up as a sacrifice, because wars are they're there to maintain or increase the profits of old rich men, and my son's not going to be a sacrifice of that.
Cannon fodder.
And for me, NATO is a monopoly created, so that's expanded like 14 countries after there was the agreement. But all those countries have to meet NATO standards in terms of their weapons.
So you must have this brand.
So, yes, and then you have to get the new ones in, and then that's just another contract and more money, and that's what it's just laundering money back for all of these people.
At the start of the Ukraine invasion, it was shown on TV, and they described it. They flew a helicopter over and says, here's 40 miles of tanks going in. There isn't one military person in the world would send a line of tanks into war, because they know they would be easily destroyed. And then you looked at what was actually being sent in, and it was old, out-of-date desert warfare type of stuff going into a soggy and cold country. It was obviously them getting rid of old stock. So they send in the old stock, but they charge the brand new price to the country. And it goes into creating a loan or a debt that goes to a bank, and then it creates, so here's a large big debt that keeps increasing every year, that at the end of it really there is only one person wins in the war, and that's the bank that creates the loan.
All we have to do, I keep saying this, everything's built, so all we have to do is say no, we're not paying it. America defaulted in 71. Inflation is a default on debt. It's just that the poor that suffer from it. So all we have to say is, we're not going to pay us back. Because I remember my uncle saying years ago, if you owe the bank 100,000, that's your problem. But if you owe them 100 million, that's their problem. And they're actually going after the real assets now. So you have like asset management firms that are buying up like housing estates, 250 houses, because they know the way financialization works is that, so there's a real asset, and then they borrow against that asset and create insurance against that asset and create like a house of cards on top of it. That's the house of cards that's fallen. So then it's down to the real asset. So that's why they're going after the land, they're going after the properties, they're going after the means of production, because they know that whole house of cards is fallen, and they need to move into a new system. And for me, their new system is a feudal system of the haves and the have-nots. But like I say, it's no plan ever survives first contact with the enemy, and they think that they had control over the internet for information. They shut us down. We come back with memes. We come back with satire. We come, so there was anything that they were throwing, we could pivot at. And they need to shut down the internet. I think that's what the whole deepfakes thing is about. And the AI, because all of a sudden AI images are all over social media, and it's like, oh, I can't believe that, because it's probably AI. So that there's creating this doubt, because we are getting the information out there and creating doubt. So hopefully.
Yep, they need something, and they have to educate people. So like you say, that's AI. So now it's a buzzword, and people have it. And as soon as something comes up, a real life video, an actual thing that happens, there it is, right in front of you. Normally they would create a whole storm of, oh, that's terrible, that's happened. Oh, that's AI. That's fake news. That's so
it's highly beneficial to them.
Yeah.
And then as well as that, they have you can do your picture in AI. You know, your profile. And I was thinking it was bad enough years ago when they had. I didn't know about the Snapchat. I have never had Snapchat. I had it for an hour. I was like, I don't understand. It's confusing, and that was it. So I didn't know about the Snapchat, and there was a girl that she put up a new profile picture, and I was like, oh, she's stunning. And we were out walking, and we were like, oh, doesn't she look so good? And none of us knew about it, and it was a while before we found out about the beauty fund. We were fuming that we never knew about it. But it's creating that idea that you're not good enough all the time.
Yes.
And as if the beauty filter wasn't bad enough, now you have an AI version of yourself. And what I've said is, I wouldn't dare. Because imagine seeing what you could look like if you were gorgeous. And then having to look in a mirror. So you would never go out into the world. But that's what they want. They want you to have a wee perfect avatar where everything's you're stunning, you're funny, everything's censored, because that's the thing. You know, if you're in an argument with somebody, a text message, you can go rah, 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 and then delete. In real life, you can't do that. Real life is raw, and real life is real. So they're kind of stepping back from that. But I think that there is a human yearning for authenticity, and we're moving back towards that. I think the young people are, like, there's, especially in Northern Ireland, there's a huge body now of young people that are going out doing the dances, doing the jiving. They're not as fixated on the fake hair, makeup, fillers, all of this kind of stuff. They're moving away from it. They want a more authentic life experience, and so I think they've maybe pushed it, that the pendulum is now swinging the other way.
It always does work on a time where you can fool people for a certain length of time, and then people start to catch on. Everybody starts to catch on. Then it becomes common knowledge. Well, that's obviously that thing, and then people start to fight back against it. It becomes more cool or up to date to do something else. So most things they do, it is a timing game and has an expiration date. So even with wars, people will get interested in Ukraine for a while, then they know, right, people have caught on to that. They know
I need a new profile picture. I
need
it somewhere else.
Yes, I put another flag up. So hey, it did used to be. It was the joke. You had somebody's Ukraine one, and then I caught this, and now the latest one is, what is it? I've had my prostate, or not.
I've had my
vaccine
to save the king.
Yes, I've had it to save the king type of thing.
What do you think about this with Prince Charles?
This is a man who's on every programme talking about natural foods and this, that and the other. They never mention any ailments in reality with the royal family. It's always kept subdued, and somebody's not feeling well, they've had a sniffle type of thing, and they're off in the hospital for a while, but they're doing well. Now it's supposedly expressed.
Out of nowhere, a turbo cancer. Did you get the vaccine?
With Fergie and... was it William's wife or something like that there, and I'm not big in the names, and then Charles and everyone else. So these are out steady now, where it's a great news filler. So he's talking filler, it sits in the news, and that'll occupy for a while, and people will sit for hours and talk about all the different things to do with it. And then yes, it could be the next advertisement. Well, just like the king or whatever else. Get your
mRNA. They're in clinical trials with it right now, just by coincidence. It's probably nothing. I was having a wee look into cancer there, because it's front page news, and isn't it terrible? But one every 90 seconds somebody gets diagnosed with cancer, and from this is me going down a rabbit hole now. So I looked up that, and then I was like, okay, well, has cancer increased? And but from 2002 it's gone up almost 40%. So in the last decade, that's still 20% in this last decade. So there's a steady increase in cancer. So chemo is very profitable. There's no money in a cure, but a treatment there's plenty of money in.
It just keeps on giving. Yeah.
And then I went down into some of the ingredients and where did chemo start, because I remember looking at this a long time ago. And it's nitrogen mustard, which is...
it was originally a gas in World War II. It was a chemical warfare concoction. I can't remember the company, maybe Bayer.
Yeah.
But originally mustard gas or something like that. So
it was a chemical warfare.
Yes.
Is where chemo arose from, and then I started looking at that, and in 1942 they were doing human trials in terms of lymphoma to see if it worked against lymphoma, and in 1943 there was an incident where there was a leak and a couple of hundred people got affected, and then they could track them and the amount of reduction in lymphoma. But for me, I think prevention's better than the cure. I find it hard to believe that they would get cancer because none of them do.
None of them do. As well as that, there was a pundit on today or yesterday, and he was announcing how Prince Charles doesn't like chemo. He is he's always protested against it and says it doesn't work.
Oh, how convenient! Because there's a new thing out from there.
Yes, so you shouldn't touch that. But we have the new bright shining.
Is he going to take one for the team and be on the clinical trial?
I think so. It could be.
That would just be so generous of him.
Aye. I wonder is the pretend one without the needle on it, that type of thing. No, one of those again. So it's you have.
I don't believe a word of it.
No.
Just being honest, don't believe a word of it, because for me, they know the cure. It's not even. I do think that they probably have a cure, because anybody that comes up with anything, you're not allowed to say anything in the internet about a cure for cancer, and people have been having so much success. I was talking to somebody lately that they were basically told to come and die, and they changed their diet to red meat and eggs, and a miracle has occurred. So it does come down to health, and we're all on such a high sugar diet, and I'm as guilty as if you give me like a refresher to, I'm away, I'm happy.
I've got a full set of sweet teeth. So.
But yeah, but we're conditioned to it, and if you look at what a cancer cell, what does it need? It needs that sugar because it's like just an energy vampire. So it just thrives in a sugar environment. So what your immune system maybe naturally would have killed off, you're sending fuel in there all the time. And there's a higher incidence. No, it was Mongolia actually was one of the higher incidents of cancer. But in America, they have such a high... Have you been to America?
Florida, so I don't know if you could call it America, but yeah.
Did you have any of the desserts over there?
We didn't get it. I'm trying to actually think of it. We had a few ones, but we didn't go to the all-you-can-eat buffets and type of things. And so we ended up but we were in Disney and Five Flags and all the other places. So we weren't in fine dining, but it was. Yeah. So I didn't get the real American food. We were mostly in theme parks and stuff.
Well, I lived there for a while. And the desserts, because I used to get 2 trains out to a Star Market that was, miles out, because they did some Cadbury's from back home, and I used to spend, £5 on a cream egg, and it was totally worth it. But the chocolate there, Hershey's, terrible, because it's just full of sugar. And now that was 20 odd years ago, so now that's the chocolate that's here now. I think Hershey's did buy over Cadbury's. I think so. I'm not entirely sure, but
it could. I don't know which company
it was.
The blend
of Cadbury's, it's not like it used to be. It's rotten. And the desserts over there were just so sweet to me, but they've been conditioned to have a really sweet tooth, so it's normal to them. And I bake a lot, and any of the American recipes, you'd have to cut out at least a third of the sugar, or it would be absolutely rotten. And slowly, through our chocolate bars and stuff, they're pushing that all into us. And when we were kids, your mummy would have got the groceries every fortnight or whatever, and the biscuits were hid.
Aye.
Because you remember when somebody would come around,
and
you're like, where were they? You see all these biscuits on the table, and you don't even ask for one. You're sitting looking at them going, please ask me, do I want one? Because if you asked for one, you'd have got a clout. So that's not how we ate. And I have started doing the fasting, and I can't do the fasting for any length of time. The 24-hour fasting, I can't, and it would be miserable for anybody to be around me if I did. So I start doing it from 7 in the evening to 11 in the morning, because that's doable. Because you've had your dinner and you can just wait late for your breakfast, and it's kind of, the idea is it's a lifestyle, so it's not like it doesn't have to be regimented, because that gives your body a chance to move away from digestion, so it also you get better sleep, and it gets a chance for it to repair. And what it will go for then in energy is anything that is lying about, and there is talk that could be like rogue cancer, you know, cells that could turn cancerous, that it kind of absorbs them back in. So that's my theory, but that's what we would have done anyway. Like, you know, there was no, you know, I'm fasting. It's just like, you've had your dinner.
That's it.
I'll see you tomorrow morning.
It seems to be recently myself. I'm obviously no petite, we think, but I did go through a wee stage where I dropped sugar completely, carbohydrate, no pasta, no bread, no potatoes, no starch of any kind, that type of thing. So it was just eggs, meat, and vegetables with as low a carbohydrate content. You need the more colour the better, that type of thing. And the difference inside a very short amount of time was unbelievable. So ailments that you maybe had for years, and you've been to the doctor and the doctor and the doctor, and just constantly, and he
have a pill for that.
Well, I think one of the times I was with the doctor, I actually had to tell him to turn around and look at me, because he was diagnosed in the computer. He just sat on the computer and typed out what was last time, this time. There's your prescription. So there you go. So the only time he turned around was to give me the prescription. I said, you know, you want to take my blood pressure? And, oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
So
no,
it was,
it's a pill for everything. They want to make, there was Henry Gadsden, he's the head of a pharmaceutical company. It was a throwaway comment in a magazine. I thought it was phenomenal.
I think I know, go ahead.
And he says he wanted to make taking a pill as common as chewing gum. Oh. And pharmaceuticals moved away from research and development and into marketing. And now it's just they want everything that you go, it's like, I have a tablet for this, I have a tablet for this. And that's not the solution. The solution is diet and lifestyle. But there's no money in that. So they don't want to make you aware of any of that. And speaking of which, with doctors, I made 100. And have you been to see your GP lately?
No, I've been trying to stay healthy, so I've been avoiding them. So, but yes, I know what you mean. How can you actually see a doctor?
133 missed calls that weren't answered to my GP surgery, and it wasn't even for me. It was for my son, and I don't really understand it, because I got a text message that night. I never got through, but that night I got a text message at 5 o'clock to say that there was an appointment for me the next day. I'd put it up on social media and said there was an appointment for me the next day, but I hadn't got through to make the appointment. And we know that there is excess deaths. I mean, you can't argue with the data on that. It's irrefutable.
It's pretty obvious at the minute. No,
and nobody's asking why. And if the GP is your gatekeeper of your health, and now they're not, and that's to get a phone call. And it was only because it was an issue with his finger. He had an accident years ago that she had to physically see him, because it was an appointment. He was diagnosed with a sinus infection over the phone a couple of weeks, months before that. So they won't even see you unless they have to see you. And then, and that's what's happening right now. But we are having excess deaths, and everything was locked down. So even if you take the vaccine out of it, if you aren't seeing your GP and that's continuing, I mean, I think that would be the first thing that Storm's going to sort out, I presume.
You would imagine. It's like you say, you could, for love or money, you can't get an appointment with a doctor.
No.
But they seem to have no problem texting me and telling me that the latest...
Get your booster.
Well, I think it was flu jab this time, and shingles and whatever else. Whatever else is the latest product. There's no problem for that.
Shingles is from a weakened immune system. What would cause your immune system to be weakened?
To weakened, I don't know. But it is amazing. If I was a doctor, I probably would want to hide my face at the moment as well. So
maybe. It
could be a good reason why they don't want to meet anybody in person, because they might be looking to the answer to some questions, like what's happened. So it could be they want to push everybody towards an app or over the phone to get used to not seeing it.
That's what I believe. Well, obviously we know that the NHS is gone. There has been this culture of people going private. People think, they've a wee bit of money about them, and that makes them a little bit above. when you go private, you're just looped back in generally. A lot of the time, you just loop back into the NHS, so you're just cutting the queue. I don't agree with that, because then there's families that haven't got that £100, because I refused to do it with a boxing physical for my son. I had to pay the doctor to do it, but they didn't want to do it. They didn't even want to see him. And I kept on phoning and phoning and phoning. I wasn't going to go to a private clinic to get the physical, even though I had to pay it with the NHS. But they want everything moved onto an app. They want people to go private for their healthcare, for genuine healthcare. The average cost of healthcare for mummy, daddy, 2 kids in America is between 16 and 23,000. If you get sick, you're done for. And there's an excess in that of maybe 5,000. So if you have hospital appointments, and then they will test you for absolutely everything when they get you in there, because it's cha-ching, 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 cha-ching. And that's where we're going into. And that's what I believe there's the Encompass app that Robin Swan brought in.
2 birds.
Yeah. And there's a provision on that for financial records to be kept on that. Well, that's either to move towards a digital ID, or it's so that you have to pay for your treatment. So it's all going to be in one. And then I didn't realise, I went in, because I never heard what happened with it, but the Palantir, like CIA funded Palantir, were given 330 million by the UK for the NHS to digitalise the NHS. That money could have been spent on workforce, on upgrades. No, it was given to them, and from what I can see, it's just for rotas. They haven't really been specific about what it's going to be. It's for rotas and for inventory of medication. I mean, that's already done, but what they're not telling you is your data. Now, they say that it's anonymised. No, it's not. No. So they've basically sold us out to be data harvested under the illusion that it's going to make everything more streamlined. You know, you'll get an appointment. Well, one place will have your records. It's like, well, I can't afford any of those places. So it's really just, for me, it's the last bit to get money to harvest your data. There's a kickback there, and they got money to harvest your data.
It's pretty much, it is collecting information. The only time you really need to put in data like that is for something like setting up an account or an invoice.
Yeah.
And you already have an account where you've paid money into it. It's got a wee number attached to it. It's your national insurance number. So I remember...
But we're paying twice now.
Yes.
Actually 3 times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now it's strange enough, the system that was set up, it was probably set up at the end of the last World War II, because there was such a big population, so many males had been killed. They were worried if another war started, they weren't going to have anybody to fight, and they might have to do it, and that can happen. So they had to turn around and start looking after the population and promote births. So they started looking after people's health. They started promoting, you could buy, instead of breast milk or whatever else, you could buy SMA, or you could buy whatever brand of baby food, and that was being pushed out again as we'll supply this, but your tax pays for it, so we'll create that little debt in the background. So it's now becoming, if I'm doing a job and I say I need to make £100, you maybe have to move £1,000, and then you get 10% of that, say £100. Same thing, if you want to make £1,000, you're going to have to shift 10,000, and on and on. So if I was a billionaire and I needed to make money, for me to make a profit, a percentage, a 10% profit, I would have to start moving trillions. So a company, there is no companies that move trillions really, but countries do. So if you want to get your hands on profit of trillions, you're going to have to start controlling countries. And then you're into the kind of figures where you can make billions. And the only kind of things you have to control countries are health service, tax, war. They're the kind of things that bring in that kind of volume. So you can still, as a billionaire, make your 10% on it. I'm sure it's a lot more than 10%. But it's, so they're the real pot of gold they're after is your health service, your electricity, your resources, only real, but they don't want to take resources here that's too visible. We'll go off to some other country like Ukraine or some other country that you won't be hearing about that's maybe rebelling at the minute, like maybe Haiti. where the people are actually now trying to get the government out because they were put in place by America, and they're now controlling the country, and the country is going no. And 5 people or something were shot in the last couple of days protesting against it to try and get the government out, and the police are just turning into hit squads to keep. But you won't hear a single thing mention of that in the news. It's kept quiet. It's something that's kept, but that's where they are starting to do a land grab in places like Haiti or countries you've never heard or you will never hear of on the mainstream or the obsolete media. You'll never hear about on those. Those are the places we should be looking towards to see what's actually happening.
Should something like that happen here, what would you expect the police force to do?
Well, the police, we got a good example over the lockdown what actually happened at the start when we had the potential of stopping their product being rolled out. We were standing there and there were 18 Land Rovers and 4 camera vans and prison vans and dogs and everything else. So you seen whenever we had the possibility of affecting the sale of the product, they were out in force to stop us. Then afterwards, once the product rolled out, it's no problem. I let them protest away. It's no problem. Let them fire away. Now, when it comes to the next stage where people are now a bit more awake and they've understand that, hold on, you fooled me once, this time you're not doing it. And you're going to turn around and the police live in the same communities as you do. Maybe those police aren't going to be that likely to come in heavy-handed. But where are they going to find young, fighting age males available to do that kind of thing? I don't know where that could. That's the kind of thing you'd have to plan in advance for. I don't know, but
I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do because there's definitely none of those.
None of those around in a hotel 7 miles from here, or there's definitely not any of them coming into any available accommodation that isn't available for people here, and it's definitely not all over the streets of Dublin and Donegal.
Did you see the protest in Dublin? Did you see the antics of the guards at the protest in Dublin?
Strangely enough, they don't seem to like Irish people, which is I now actually rate Ireland with a small I because we've lost our capital.
That's very good. Yeah.
So it's crazy at the minute. These are people who are supposed to be looking after the people who pay the taxes. They're supposed to be keeping the peace, but they seem to be holding somebody else's coat here at the minute.
That's the thing. There was one guard in particular, and I reckon he had to be special branch or something because he was so forceful. And I think what people need to be aware about protests is that violence can absolutely not happen at a protest. That's what they want. That's what they try and instigate, and we have seen that happen. How do they do it? They don't go after the men in general. They'll go after women. And in Dublin, they were shoving children out of the way. Now, if I shoved a police officer the way they shoved a civilian,
and slay arrested,
I'm up for assault. But they're allowed to do it to civilians, and they were shoving the women because the natural instinct of men is if a woman gets shoved, is to stand in and defend the woman. And then when one man stands in, all the other men stand in, then you have a fight in your hands, and that's what they're looking for. So I think that Sean was brilliant at that, at managing that. And he would say, if anybody was out there being violent, they're not one of us.
Yes.
So just form a ring around them, let them do their thing, and move on. So, because there might be a time for violence, but I believe the men of violence won't be the ones at the protest. They will be invisible men that we'll never hear about. And hopefully we don't have to get to that stage. But the way we were treated as well, I was speaking to you earlier, the way we were treated at the protest by the police. So I don't know what's going to happen moving forward with the police, with the guards, what they did in Dublin. They changed their route. So there was a huge protest, and it's not that they're racist, it's really that there's such a strain on the resources that there's become an increasing homeless issue. There's you can't get medical treatment, and there's crime is through the roof because these men, and it is majority men, are largely unvetted. Castro did that. He threw out the dregs of his prison and sent them to America, and it seems that that's what seems to be being brought in here. We can't ever say anything about being an economic migrant because we were economic migrants. On this island, we went to Australia, America, New Zealand. We went everywhere.
Yeah.
But when we got there was no hotel. When I first arrived in America, I had, I think, like $150 and nowhere to live. See, now, I won't go anywhere until I know exactly how am I getting from the airport to the place, exactly what the place is like. Do they have air conditioning? But back then there was nine of us in a 2-bedroom apartment with no beds. We had lilos for the entire summer that you'd blow up at night and it would be flat in the morning and you just have to peel it off your face and get up in the shower and go on to work. But that was a rite of passage. So I wouldn't deny anybody that. You know, we were all working, we had the visas, we had the J1 visas, we were working legitimate jobs, nobody handed us anything. But there's too many people doing without here for us to be in a position. And you can be super virtuous, because I cannot stand this cult of virtue, because you're not looking at the consequences of your virtue, because you're borrowing all this money to pay for it. But you think, well, I'm not borrowing it. So same thing with wars. They couldn't happen if they didn't fund them. If you went round everybody and go, yes, I think we should take in as many migrants as we possibly can. We're all loving and light and love, la la la. Go, excellent. So here's what's going to happen. I am going to be taking 10% of your wages. They'll be like, no. So it's easy to be virtuous when you don't think that you're on the hook.
Yeah.
But we are on the hook. And it's not just us. It'll not even plan out as us, because the debt, what the debt is a promise by the government based on the future taxes of its citizens to the banks or the bondholders or whatever. So that's based on the future taxes of its citizens. The future citizens are my children, your children, grandchildren. So we are putting a tab on our children. And I believe, for me, that's why CBDC is coming in. Because you're not going to be able to wriggle out of tax. Everything you earn. And you might, even if you're the most virtuous person in the world, when you're paying tax, I can guarantee that you don't pay all the tax that you're supposed to pay. Because nobody does. It's not possible. It's so complicated. So they can tax you, and then after World War II, taxes were at 99.25%. So we're currently paying, I think I read something, it's about 70% of what we earn goes in tax. Because it's not income tax.
I would have thought it was a lot higher, but yeah.
Well, that's the average.
Yeah.
Because you have to take in, the multinationals and the uber rich that don't pay any tax. So that kind of pulls it down. If you were just looking at middle earners, it would be an awful lot higher. Because it's not just the income tax, it's the road tax. My road tax is £320 this year. I feel like calling the police.
Well, they're trying to Dublin at the minute. They're bringing in, they're stopping cars going through the centre of Dublin.
I seen that. So
you've paid, and then they're talking about things in England, ULEZ and everything else, but they're talking about bringing in, we need a mileage-based tax. You have that. It's called petrol.
Yeah.
The more miles you drive, the more petrol you use, the more tax you pay. But that's not good enough. We need to tax on the tax on the tax.
Yeah.
So yes, you have your car tax, then you have your tax on your insurance, you'll have the tax on the petrol that you put into it. You have to get MOT'd. Tax
on the tyres, the MOT. Yes. MOTs are, what was it, £38 for MOT, but generally now your car will fail, because then they get you back in for another £20. It's actually more expensive in England. But now what's happening is the engine management light. If that light is on,
yes.
Now there can be nothing, because especially if anybody owns a BMW, it's just
it's
like Blackpool illumination.
It might as well be an indicator.
And so there's nothing wrong with your car. It's because that can flag up because valves go sticking and
AdBlue. Hey. This new urea, which is literally pee, that you have to add to the tank. It doesn't affect the workings of the car at all. It's added into the exhaust gas going out, so it does not affect your car in any way. It's just to tick a box on a green paper somewhere to say you're saving the environment by adding in urea to the gas going out. But your car now flags up a light if you don't have it. So it's your car now could be perfectly working, safe on the road. You're not a danger to anybody. But now there's a little light on it, and you must buy your AdBlue with the tax, with the whatever else added to it. Yeah. And your car can't move. Yes.
I'd like to see what percentage of cars fail now, that because they only brought it in, I think, last year. So I'd like to see what percentage of cars feel moving forward? Because I'd just like to go back to my wee 205.
Yeah.
You know, no power steering. You could lift the... Like, there's no dipsticks now in cars. You're supposed to trust a computer that your car has oil.
My car the other day was started. I noticed it making a noise, but no oil later. I think we pulled the dipstick out, dry as a bone, put in 5 litres of oil, still, so that the car was completely out of oil.
Yeah.
But whatever sensor told you the oil was out.
Yeah.
So it was only by the noise I could hear the tablets
Yeah.
and stuff at the top actually make a noise.
But we were actually taught about cars.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, if there was a rattle, you just...
Turn the radio on.
Turn the music off. And now there's lights. I remember it was actually the first time that I was taking my mum to chemo. And I had a 5 Series with... Now, I bought it out of England. I didn't consider... I was like 19-inch low-profile tyres. Now, they work great in motorways. Here with the potholes, I was putting on tyres every 2 weeks. And on the way to chemo, one of it was flagged up, air pressure. And I didn't have the car that long. And I'm like, does that mean it's a flat? What is this? And I looked around the 4 tyres and they all look flat. You know, which one is the flat one? But it was, there was nothing, that time I did have to go and get a new tyre. But with air and hot and cold, it changes and it flags up lights. So they're constantly flagging up lights. So they're just it's just a new way to get you to feel, because it's an extra bit of money. And speaking of which, I can't get an MOT. My car's up for MOT and I can't get an appointment until its tax is out in February. And I can't get an MOT date until June. A lot of the centres are closed.
It's getting to be the same as a dentist. You make an appointment, but you can only get it 2 months down the line, and then you come to it and you forget you had the appointment, so you miss it, but they charge you for it anyway.
Yeah, but then you're driving around without tax, and like it's at their discretion. But it's as long as there's nothing wrong with the car, well, as long as they don't stick in their head and see that there's a light on.
Aye, again, it hasn't. MOT was a safety thing to make sure that the car was roadworthy. It's safe.
Yeah.
But now it's not. It's just a taxation.
Yeah.
That's
it. It's just tax upon tax upon tax.
And that's the pressure on people at the minute. With all the things happening around the world, you could talk about Ukraine and this, that and the other. But in reality, what we're looking at in our front door, at our doorsteps, I mean, most people, say a couple of years ago, you're taking over rightly, you're not making a huge amount of money, but you're paying the bills and things around. I'm noticing a lot of fellas getting a lot more stressed at work now, and where they could pay bills before, now they're not making ends meet. And it's not that they've changed their lifestyle in a great way. They're not going off and buying caviar, and they're not able to go on holidays. They can't update anything. They're driving the old car.
They're too close to the edge.
It's not even that they were totally fine and living within their means and no problem, but under no fault of their own, their wages have now been devalued, and you see it with
purchasing power.
Yeah, the teacher strikes, the bus strikes, the health strike. Everybody's striking at the minute. But we're chatting to one of the fellas at work, and they says that the doctors they're asking for 30%. I says they should be asking for 100%. Says, you look at the petrol doubling price, you go to the shop and you buy a loaf of bread, it's twice the price. Everything you're buying is twice the price. I work in a company, and say like a sheet of metal used to be, when I started working in it 20 years ago, the sheet of metal was £600. That sheet of metal shot up to £1,200. So it's no problem. The company just puts the price of their product up to cover the cost of the products is now, say whatever, £1,000, so they put their profit onto it and they put it up accordingly. If it goes to £2,000, they add the percentage to it and moves on. But in that, at the same time as all those things are moving up in every direction, the cost of the materials, the cost of the petrol, the tax, the red diesel's gone, now they have to put white diesel and everything, the wages have stayed the same. So in reality, through no fault of all the workers, all of us,
Did they stay at home when they printed the money?
Yes. Well,
so that's their fault.
That's the thing. I didn't.
Especially the teachers. They should have looked into what inflation is.
Yes, I never stayed at home. I went out and worked through the whole thing. But the teachers, never them sitting back. But that also gives yes, it's your fault that you stayed at home. You got the money, and now you have to pay for it. You got the money.
But it's about taking responsibility and having a tither of wit to think, how can they pay me to stay? How can they pay me and everybody else to stay at home. How is that possible? There's got to be a catch. There has to be consequences.
Somebody has to pay the bill at the end of the day. It's like you go into a restaurant and you sit down and this person's got lobster and this person's got Wagyu beef, whatever you call it, and this person's got the caviar or something, and you're sitting there with a ham sandwich. And it comes right to everybody's eating. It's okay. I'm just in this ham sandwich. Whatever. They finish and this fella heads off. Oh, I've got a phone call. Heads off. Yeah. This fella heads, and you're left and they hand the bill to you. And that's what's happening at the minute.
Yeah.
All these people are enjoying the best things in life. All the politicians, they're heading off.
Well, that's what inflation is. Bad if you have savings. Good if you have assets. Great if you have debt. And it is a tax on the poor. Mm-hmm. And what happened is, in order to pay all the people, they just inflated the money supply. Mm-hmm. So it was more money chasing the same amount of goods and services. It's called the Cantillon effect. So at first you don't actually see it, but who gets access to the money first? It's somebody asked me actually about this last night. Who gets access to the money first gets the most benefit from it. And the way I describe it is it gets a wealth transfer from the people who came late to the party to the people who were there early at the party. So if you imagine a monopoly board, and we're all playing Monopoly, and halfway through I just take half the money from another Monopoly board, or 40%, because that's how much it was increased, and that's in my pocket, and I start buying up everything. So I'm buying the hotels, but I'm buying them at the current price that they're going at. But then when that money goes out in, more people have money, and then the prices go up because it's more money chasing the same amount of goods and services. Mm-hmm. So, or the same amount of goods in a monopoly board. So that's what they did. So what inflation is taking a tiny bit of the purchasing power out of every pound that exists and putting it into their pocket. Now, it's predominantly a tax on the poor because what percentage, so it's bad if you have savings, or if you're just out there buying food and regular things. It's good for asset and good for debt because the value of your debt goes down. But they're making that up with interest rates to the general public who, or have their mortgage. But if you're poor, the percentage of your income affected by inflation is way higher because it's the petrol you put in your car, it's the food you put on your table, it's the oil you put in your tank, it's everything. But if you're richer, that's only a smaller percentage of your overall money. And more people should get mad at that. And what they know is inflation, the cure for higher prices is higher prices. So the reason that we're not all out eating lobster is because it's not something that we can all afford. So it gets to that price and you go, no, I'm not buying it no more. And that's what we're starting to find out with groceries. I don't know what's going to happen to Heinz baked beans. It's just going to be exclusively by drug barons or something. I don't know, and the elites. But because who's going to pay £1.30 for a can of beans when you have like Stockwell there? But that's what happens. People start making the changes. But that's why the cure for higher prices is higher prices. But inflation has to end somewhere in their minds. So it ends with wages, because if they give you a 50% increase in your wages, then you have the money, and that allows the prices to keep going up. So that's to force, by capping it and not giving you an increase in your wages, it forces you into that situation that the cure for higher prices is higher prices, because you won't pay it anymore because you can't pay it anymore, and then it forces it for the prices to go back down again. So that's why they're not going to get their raise, although they did raise minimum wage to crush small to medium businesses. They did do that.
Yeah. There was a fella way back, a couple of years back, I was sitting the same thing, I was telling it, while everybody's talking about vaccines, injections, I says it's nothing to do with it, that's just a means to an end. What's happening in the background is, and it's the joke was, every time I'd say something, he says, that's a land grab. He says, yes, it is a land grab. It's all a distraction. It's all got, they're very efficient in what they do. They'll bring out something and they will profit on it 4 or 5 different ways. And it'll be to take your attention away. It'll to leave you ill so you're not able to defend yourself. It'll affect your pocket. And so they hit you in 5 different ways. But at the end of it, all they're really after is the tangible assets. They're after your land, your commodities that they can actually hold on to, because they know that their money is magic beans. It's like a Santa Claus.
It's magic fairy dust.
It works great as long as you believe in it. The second
like
you
a religion.
don't, yes, the second you don't, the value's gone. So, but they have tangible assets. They have something you can physically put your hand on. So that's what they hold on to. They know when they're creating all this problem and all this crisis, they buy up land like farmland in America or
housing estates that are economically efficient, because they know that they're going to, they're wiping out homes by this whole green transition is wiping out homes. So what is that really about? Because there was a study, I can't remember the name, it was like a legitimate study, 59% of homes in the UK will never be able to achieve above a D rating in the EP
energy rating.
Yeah, energy performance certificates. So, and they now are forcing landlords into like a C rating. So landlords are just between Section 24, Section 21 and these impositions of the green economy. Landlords are just getting out, and now nobody can get anywhere to rent. But they're going to, move in. Lloyd's are going to move in, but it's a house of cards again that's going to fail. But with the EPC, the energy performance certificates, if you know that 59% of the houses are not going to meet them, they're just going to do the same thing with houses that they did with cars. If you have an A rating, which is what the houses that all BlackRock and Lloyd's are buying up, the energy efficient houses, even though there's going to be issues with them, then you don't have to pay the tax, or like the electric cars. If you're a B rating, you have to pay maybe, $400 a year. If you're a C rating, $1,000 a year. If you're a D rating, again, just taxing the poor. That's what I see them actually coming in with that, because I've looked into the heat pumps. They're energy vampire, like they're electricity vampires, and they don't work. If you're building a brand new house, yes, they work. My cousin just put one in. He has this room that is like a laboratory with it, but it only works in a closed system.
Yes.
But then would there not be an issue then with mould if you're constantly, it has to be closed and you can't have a fireplace because, no alternatives then, and freedom demands choices and they don't want to have choices. The other one was the district heating. Not a viable option. The infrastructure isn't there with the pipes, and there was burst pipes everywhere, and people not having any heat for 3 months at a time, and just being handed electric radiators, and it's a monopoly, so the customer service is ridiculous. And then hydrogen, but the hydrogen that they're talking about is dependent on fossil fuels, so that's kind of negated as well. So it's not about that, it's about taxes.
Yes.
That's the only thing that makes sense.
It's them creating, it doesn't matter what they bring in, it could be anything like cars, houses, anything else. They have to create some obstruction to you carrying on in your life, and you have to pass some criteria that they have. A bit like back in the lockdown days and stuff, where you come into a place that had to take your temperature or something like this. So it wasn't to take the temperature. Probably it was actually a good way to show if somebody was higher temperature, probably not well. But it had nothing to do with that. It was for you had to be stopped. You had to pass some kind of checkpoint where they had to pass, and it was a scan your head or whatever else.
Yeah, it was conditioning.
Conditioned so that you can't travel freely. You must have our permission. You must jump over a certain hurdle. Today it is, we'll scan your temperature. Tomorrow it'll be, is your car efficient enough? The next day it'll be, have you enough points on your ID, digital ID or whatever else? Have you been a good person? They need to create that obstruction, that obstacle. But that's the thing, it's like, accept it. Why are we accepting it? We need to start going, hold on 1 second. I didn't need this yesterday. I grew up my entire life without this stuff. I don't need this. The grass out in that field doesn't need this. The sun in the sky doesn't. This is only being created by people to add another bar to the prison you're in. So we should be actually saying, hold on a second, politician, no, don't create that new law where my house uses too much energy, so you have the right to come in and arrest me because my house
1 year in prison.
Why?
Or 15 grand.
There's always a money way out.
That's the real part, because you're going to borrow 15 grand rather to go to prison for a year, because you have a tumble dryer and a washing machine.
How dare you? You want clean clothes and shower? How dare you? Yes. So it's things that are standard, off the shelf, basic needs are now becoming, no, that's a luxury. You must obey this tick box, or you must.
They got conditioned. The only way that they got it in was by fear. Because I followed what was going on, I never believed in it. I didn't anticipate everything that was going to happen. Definitely not. But they kept on getting away with things, and they kept on getting away with things. And somebody showed a clip. If you remember that clip that was going about, it was an Irish guy. I can't remember who it was, but it was a WHO press conference.
Oh yes, I know him. Yep.
Where he said that about going in and taking people out of the house, like so they could go in and take your children.
It's the phrase he used to describe how they would handle them, and it was, you were going to handle them in a dignified manner. That's the phrase they use whenever they take a body away after somebody had died. You take it away in a dignified manner. They were talking about living people as if they were dead bodies. It was easy to tell what was in the background, what was the plan further down the line. So that was one of the most and hearing it with an Irish accent made me extremely cross, because he should know better.
But if they had have got away, they would have took it that far. If they had got went into house, and I've heard stories of people that their kid tested positive, and they kept their child in their room for the whatever quarantine period it was, and just give them the food through the door.
Yep, fed them with ham and sliced cheese.
And that's what I say. If that was if I was going to risk death, there's no way I'm going to leave my kid. Sure, here you might die, you might not, but here's a sandwich, and I'll knock again. And if there's no answer, I'll send in a quarantine team. Like, what in the world were parents thinking?
Yes.
And, but people just went along with it because of fear. If they had just brought in all these measures, there's a flu, you have to... People wouldn't have. But it's a powerful motivator. And they're going to have to come up with something else now, probably cyber attacks, losing your money. Oh, that's going to be a fear one.
Yeah. It was amazing at the time where all the things were coming in and they were closing down, this, that and the other in churches, and that was the one that really threw me whenever that happened. These are people who say they believe, they're religious, whatever, they have beliefs, but they closed the door on churches up the road, wherever else. It's like,
Jesus would be so proud.
Hold on 1 second. That was one of the things I said. Jesus could walk through the lepers, but the priest won't walk through the healthy. Yeah. But there was a man as a hardware store just up the road, and there's always a chat at the counter, and so somebody was saying, what do you think of these people wearing the masks up in the chapel? He says, have they no faith? Yeah. Just a simple wee phrase, have they no faith? Yeah. If you have faith and say you are religious, you're wearing a mask. Have you not faith? No, it's a demonstration. People sitting in chapel, whatever else, or church, or whatever the denomination they are, with masks on, it was an obvious thing where people are living a lie most of the time. They appear to be, oh yes, I'm very, very religious, but fall at the first hurdle whenever something came along where you must stand up for what you believe in.
There was a couple of priests that were doing it, and we were actually invited to a mass rock. I've never been to a mass at a mass rock before. You always know about mass rocks, but you kind of thought they were. And
they have them amongst down the road here.
And the priests kept their faces hidden, because that way nobody could identify the priest, so nobody could be targeted to identify the priest. And you're thinking, priests did that before. And there was so few priests that did anything this time. Yes. Very, very few. Did you see the Irish priest that gave out about Bambi Thug and about sex education in the schools? Did you see the clip of him? I
didn't see it. It was one of the things I clicked on to watch, but then I couldn't see it. I didn't get time, so I haven't actually seen it.
He was brilliant. He said, like, whatever you want to do. I don't want to see it in my face. And he's like non-binary, neither here nor there. And he was giving out about RTE, and you shouldn't be paying your TV licence and stuff. But he was absolutely right. That's because there's coming out now that there's like some porn thing of this person and stuff, and that's who's supposed to
represent
Ireland. And this isn't somebody who represents, like, the musical culture of Ireland is phenomenal. Like, that's one of our exports. We exported, like, we made like pot sheen, and we exported it in like fair enough. America didn't prove it, and they did a good job in the music as well. But that's such a thing of our culture, music, and to have that, and like that's north and south. But this is like Bambi Thugs in the south. To have that, it wasn't weird. She was screaming.
Yes, it's part of the technique. It's something so offensive that, and that's the thing. It's a tiny percentage of people. Nobody listens to that, but it's a tiny. That's being put out as this is representing all of you.
Yeah, this is the best we've got. Jesus Christ.
And it's to demoralise the entire country. Anybody that does watch that kind of thing automatically, what is this? That's it. And it's to slowly take away everything from you. So it's something like that. Music.
See, music's very, very powerful.
Yes.
Did you see the Tracy Chapman played at the Grammys?
I love Tracy Chapman, but
it was. I seen it and I heard a little bit of the harmony. Because like if you remember the Grammys last year, it was this full satanic show. You know, with who you call your
was it Sam Smith?
This year it was just the only thing that irritated me was Taylor Swift. You know, they kept on shooting to her. Whatever it is with her, everybody's obsessed with her. But Tracy Chapman came out, and that I remember buying that CD. And that was just shortly after I was getting rid of my tapes. And like I actually played it again after that, and there's just the tunes on that. It's one of the best albums. It would be one of the ones your Desert Island Discs albums. Every song in it. But she did Fast Car with Luke Combs, who also recorded it. And it was, what I posted was that it's a black woman. She's reportedly gay. She doesn't talk about it because it's nobody's business. But it's gay straight, black white, man woman, just in total harmony. She wasn't, she didn't look like she had any makeup on. Her hair, she'd let her hair go grey. She'd have just tied back. She was just wearing a simple black shirt and black trousers. She looked so beautiful. If you go and see it, you'll understand what I mean.
Yep.
It was just her face. She was smiling. She was, it was an amazing performance, and you could see how excited he was. Like he was mouthing what she was saying. You know, he was just so excited in it and just lost in the moment. And then you had Taylor Swift. She was like a statue, just void of rhythm, just swaying, standing up. Look at me, have her.
Stick inside,
And but then they showed you other people just lost in the music, and that's what music is capable of, and that's why they take some chicken scratch noise and put it on, and here that's the best we've got.
Yep.
So that's for me. I think the music is very, very powerful, and that's why they shut down bars and stuff. They didn't want people.
They don't want people talking to each other, going out, having fun, communicating, linking. You know, they want to be connected through a computer, and that's it. You can't have any sense of community, any sense of belonging, any sense of connection to anybody else, except through her device.
Yeah.
So and then they can monitor, read it with AI.
They're reading your text, yeah.
Yes, there is a lot of it at the minute. We talking about something. Somebody had phoned at work about something, so I had said it a few times, and next minute it's an advertisement on my phone. I've never typed it into a search engine. I've never asked anybody about it, but I wasn't using the phone at the time. The phone was sitting here.
Yeah.
And somebody had called up at work, so we're going through details and talking about it, and then next minute you pick up your phone, and there it is as an advertisement. So it's
Minority Report.
Yeah.
And that's what they're working on, like pre-crime.
Aye. It's even a speed camera in your car. You're driving down the road.
At the box. The young ones have.
Yeah. You have. Oh, sorry, no, the actual camera. Sorry, I'm working on.
Yeah.
So you're driving down the road. You haven't committed a crime. You haven't done any harm. Nobody's been hurt. Nothing's actually happened. But you're driving down the road, but you're doing 35 and a 30. You're now a criminal. We're now sending you a bill. If you don't pay it, it doubles up. Aye, and it's just a money box that they've set there. But you haven't committed a crime. But that's one thing. People have maybe accepted that as a... But now it could be you have a thought, or you send out a text, and now you said something. Nobody's heard while you're like, yes. But if you send it on your phone, now somebody can land at your door. It's now they passed that censorship law, whatever they call it, the Harms Act or whatever.
Online harms.
Online harms. So it's a censorship law where if you say something, now somebody can land at your door, and if say I don't like chicken curry, that's somebody comes on, I've offended that. That's you're
racist.
You're racist. That's chicken curry. That's mainly eaten in India. You hate Indians.
Yeah.
Why are you so against Indian?
You need a 6 month stint in the gulags,
or pay your fine again. So it's now it's again with the energy one. If your house, the house you've lived in, maybe grew up in or born or whatever else, generations, whatever else, your house now is no longer acceptable. You must upgrade, you must change, you must knock that house down and build it in our fashion the way we want. Or you go to jail or whatever else. So it's this, it isn't, you have bad people who maybe go out and harm people. Now you've simply breathed and you're starting to commit crimes. And it's that constant...
But you self-censor. I think that's the point. They can't actually monitor us to the degree. I know that they have like massive data centres and nobody wants to talk about them and the fact that they are sucking energy and they don't produce anything, they don't move anybody around. But they can't monitor to that degree yet. But you self-censor. So, I mean, with this proposal with a referendum in the hate speech in the South, it's horrendous. And that's just, the South seems to be a wee trial area. And we'll see, we'll keep on pushing and pushing and pushing at them. The idea is that they can come into your, if you have a meme on your phone, now I think I have like 60,000 photographs on my phone, from memes.
Yeah.
Mostly. They are. If you have a meme when you're they would have to give me like 75 death sentences. Put her 12 foot under. But that they can come in and take all of the electronics out of your home.
Yes. Yeah. Not just yours, your family's and everything else.
So if you work from home, right? So then that's to say there's 4 people in your home. That's 4 phones gone. So maybe 3 computers, because most of them have computers, and your child, your son and your daughter might be using theirs for work, and you have to replace all that. That you don't get that back for about 2. Even if you, so the process is the punishment. So even if you've done absolutely nothing, you get your stuff back 2.5 years time. So you have to replace thousands of pounds worth of equipment, and they'll make examples of certain people. If they get it in, there is pushback. But I mean, there's pushback against immigration, and they're like, well, we don't represent you, we represent NGOs, so we're not listening to you. If they do get it in, they'll make an example of certain people, and then everybody else just self-censors. You're like shunning people for sending you a meme.
Even you go back to the time of the start of the lockdown and masks and stuff, nobody was biting it, nobody was going for it. It was a joke, whatever, not a chance. And then you had the lowlife Stephen Nolan appeared in a car park up in Belfast and started chasing people around, saying, why are you not wearing your mask?
I think that entire thing was set up.
It was but that's the thing. That went out on TV. Now, that specific thing, I didn't even see it on TV.
I wish he'd come across me.
I would love to have been the person that he met. But that was on TV. I actually walked from the seat. It was on a phone. And I walked from the seat and went into the computer and I cancelled. I was paying my TV license up to that point, and I cancelled it. For that specific reason, I'm not paying for somebody to abuse people in the middle of Belfast. So, from that point, from where those people were embarrassed in a petrol station or being chased around in a petrol station by somebody who couldn't run after them, then from that point on, people started putting masks on.
Yeah, they're afraid to.
So it was the embarrassment of somebody could actually say something to me.
Oh, I've had people say stuff to me.
Oh,
They regretted it, but I have. But you have to be comfortable with confrontation, or else you have to be comfortable with selling your children into slavery. That's your choices here.
At the time, I was wanting somebody. I maybe had that kind of face that people didn't want to leave him alone. He's not right in the head.
Yeah.
But whenever I walked into a shop, I'd walk in and smile. And every time I didn't meet anybody who confronted me about not wearing a mask, when I met people, I met this.
Yeah.
They were embarrassed.
The hard boys that used to run around with
Yes.
years ago. And you see them coming out of the shop with a mask on. You hear, do you remember when you used to be like hard? And I look at you. What else is the government telling you to do that you're doing?
On you go, little boy.
Yeah. Get your booster.
But that was amazing. And But I nearly miss the masks now. Because at the time you could tell people who you knew these people would stand up for themselves. These people have some kind of integrity. They have the awareness to think, wait a minute, this isn't right, and you're not going to tell me what to do. So it actually highlighted a lot of people who were, I didn't realise you had a bit of knowledge behind you and a bit of thinking this is wrong and I'm going to stand up. I'm not going to be pushed into it. But it was amazing. Like you said earlier, the people who did get very vicious. It was people who had the masks on and they couldn't cover themselves anymore.
Yeah.
That was just they were looking out through a wee hole in an N95 mask or something. But they were the ones who were absolutely vicious on telling you what
I
how
always call them murder and everything.
Yeah. Oh, you should live your life the way I'm telling you. But it didn't take much prompting for them to turn around from I'm a lovely nice person to you must die.
Yeah, Jordan Peterson did a kind of monologue about that, about how quickly you realised that you were living beside Nazis who were just listening, waiting for the message to come from Ferror to tell you what to do.
And it was very similar. They used, it's how I noticed so early on, they used military tactics they would normally use against other countries. And they used it here. And it flagged up even the terms like you're a frontline worker.
Yeah.
All those kind of were fighting a war, everything was being worded in war language. So it was obviously they didn't even change their template or techniques. They just peeled off whatever we're attacking Ukraine or whatever it was at the time. It'll be Syria or something. They peeled the label off and stuck on space, face, whatever.
Interesting about what's acceptable. Again, it's in the south of Ireland because I was down for a few days with a very good friend of mine. And we were doing a lot of talking. In the south now, they're bringing it in that certain businesses, essential businesses, have to accept cash. And that's putting it out there.
Yeah.
But you don't. And with the businesses, it's like corner shops, supermarkets and pharmacies. That's it. So it's kind of putting the idea out to everybody else. Get rid of cash. And but it's that idea of what's essential. So all that you really need cash for is food and medical supplies. They can't deny you that basics. But then if you think with the mortgage and everything, you do pay everything online.
Yes.
And there is a theory, it'd be interesting to see if it's tested, should people not be able to pay their mortgage, that I have a very interesting guy that I talked to, very, very intelligent, that, kind of would play scenarios out with him. And he says, so if you said, so you haven't paid your mortgage, if you go to court and you've refused to pay, that's an issue. So you need to offer payment. So you can say to them, the money is here, that you're operating in a cash-only system, that the money is here for you every second Saturday of the month between the hours of 10 and 2. You're going to need a certified and attested copy of their ID. You're going to need their vaccination status, because just knock a wee bit of crack out of it, you may as well. Should they then take you to court for non-payment, you have dialogue where you have offered payment. So what would the judge do in that scenario? Because then you have had the cash option removed, and you're saying, well, I no longer have a bank account, so you just shut down your bank account and say, I'm going to be paying by cash and this is my terms. So it'd be interesting to see. It's a good thought analysis of potential, because I can see that there is going to be a situation where people are going to be losing their homes. It's happening in China right now.
But they're stressing at the minute. They're stressing, bringing everything down to people around the breadline. And it'll be the thing to go. And it's like you say, you'll maybe have somebody living in a house. Next minute they can't pay for the house. The bank takes it, but you pay rent. So you're still living in the same house, but now you don't have any connection to it. You now have to rent it, things like that. So it's going to push on that, and then eventually it'll be, no, you get out. We can get something more profitable in there. So it is amazing. It's everything, again, the embarrassment thing. Everything will be kept under the table or out of sight until they can't any longer. They'll squeeze everybody dry. Until that's
when you're cold and hungry enough.
Well, once you're not feeding somebody, then that now there's
you'll submit to environmental communism.
Anything. show me where to sign. Yeah.
This is the thing. Jordan Peterson, I was listening to one of his podcasts a long time ago, so I don't remember exactly the details, but he was saying that about 3 to 5% of the population are psychopaths.
Mm-hmm.
Generally sits around 3%. I think that's percentages. And it becomes acceptable for them. And then they kind of grow in numbers to 5%, but it's actually noticed that they're kind of stepping out and becoming, and we've seen that lately, that they think it's acceptable. You know, they're straight out telling you, you'll own nothing and be happy.
Aye.
And they think that that's acceptable, that we're going to go, okay, sounds good. And they come forward. And then we push back, because my theory is that bad people are actively bad, good people are passively good, but in the right situation, good people step up and are actively good. Mm-hmm. So we recognise, hey, no, that's not acceptable behaviour. And they're pushed back in. But I think then again, there's just the couple of percentage, you know, I say that 3 to 5% of the population, if they rise up against the government, no government can sustain that. So it has to be active. And so there's these just 2 percentages all the time. And that's like one, so it is just, you're always on a spectrum. And then with the American Revolution, it was 30% opposed, 30% for, and then the middle didn't care. Mm-hmm. And that's always the way of it is. And I think Matthias Desmond talks about that, like the 20% and the 20%. You know, so there's the 20% that will just straight away adopt it. Mm-hmm. And then there's the 20% go, absolutely not a chance. But right now, those people in the middle, they're not going to go towards that way naturally by want. It's going to have to be a forced move into that method. And that's why I think it's really important for us to create alternatives, because it's about making something obsolete. We can't fight against them, because we'll have to go become like psychopaths, and they're going to be better at it. So, and for us to win, we would have to be better at it. Then that's not a win, then there's just more psychopaths. But for us to win, we have to create an alternative system that makes their system obsolete. Mm-hmm. And then we win, because Zara gave me the analogy, I loved it. It's like a juggernaut going off a cliff. And if we try and get in front of it, we're going to be the first off the cliff. Mm-hmm. So we're just here doing our thing, you know, doing a little bit, learning a little bit more about our health, growing our own food, doing a little bit of homeschooling, creating our own wee world here, that if that's the seed will grow. And the ones on the juggernaut that realise it, if there's nothing to jump off to, they won't. But if there's an alternative that they see, they're more inclined to jump off. So and there is so many people doing so many things. Like there is, like homeschooling, I think, is really interesting.
It's fantastic. It's just to take you out of that system where it doesn't make sense, where you sit in rows in a school and you read and repeat. It is completely alien. It's
the Prussian model, and it was actually invented to create soldiers, because they lost the war, and they were like, well, what happened is because we told them to do stuff and they didn't do it. How do we fix this? Okay, we'll get them into schools. It'll be mundane, monotonous, minimal play, and you get them to. There's teachers at the front. You just do everything the teachers say. You have to ask permission to go to the bathroom, and that's creating obedience, so that they just do as they're told. So it was to create obedient, loyal soldiers. Rockefeller seen this. If somebody brought it to him, and he's like, excellent. You just think, you know, what do you call him, Mr. Burns? Excellent. We'll take that, and instead of creating soldiers, we'll create workers. And we'll do the 9 to 5, we'll do the bell, and then we're creating soldiers and our workers, and then we have daycare for the workers that we have created. And that's what the schooling system is about. It's to indoctrinate you into that 9 days on, or 5 days off, on, 2 days off, 5 days on, 2 days off, until you pay off your mortgage, and then you get a couple of years, and then you die. And that's what we're sending our kids to. When I was down in Kinsale, I seen these 2 little boys, maybe about 6 years old, running. They just got out of school, and you're like, free. And you think, it's so cruel. It actually is abusive that we take these we creative beings, and we say, sit in the chair. From 9 to 3, sit there. do as you're told. And there is that study where, like, was it, I looked at it lately, they did a study on what makes a genius. And 90+% or something of children are geniuses, and then it kind of decreases, and it's because of schooling.
That's been beat out of my doctor.
Because you don't critically think. That's what you're taught at school. Just be obedient. And if you don't critically think, all that you're going in there to do is learn information that's already known. So how can anything new ever happen? Mm-hmm. So I love Anne McCluskey says that she managed to escape education without having the intelligence educated out of her. And that's true. Uh-huh. The way I see it, because everybody says who is the they? And you're never going to find out. They could be living in Antarctica or an island or whatever. But there's us who are at the bottom layer of the pyramid. And then we are puppeteered by our government, and then our government is puppeteered by NGOs and then there's the central banks and the IMF and the BIS, and you go up and up, and you're never going to find out the collection of families, whatever it is. So we're never going to know. No. But if we get down here and we just cut the strings, there's no power. All of them have no power, because it's all dependent on the bottom layer. So it really doesn't matter to be fixated on who it is. Yeah. Just cut their power. And it's that they have the monopoly on money and the monopoly on violence. And there was opportunities to create our own monetary system, but it's exhausting. I remember a guy says to me one time, if we could only print money and pay people to do stuff, imagine what we could do. Yes. Aye. Because we were all working as volunteers, in doing everything. But imagine if you could print money. It would you would have the world fixed 6 months tops. Yep. But that's the power that they have, and that's the power that they're losing. And that's the opportunity that we're now coming into, because my hope is, I know I'm very optimistic, but my hope is that it is a case like the French assignat. So it was brought in for about 6-7 years. Forced to pay jail time, etc. if you didn't use it, when the currency was collapsing, and that ended with the King and Queen being beheaded, the revolution. So they're going to have to force in their CBDC, quite possibly. I think they'll force it in. It may or may not work, and that is the end of their monetary system. And it's an opportunity for us now that do have the technology to create a fair monetary system. BRICS are moving ahead with it, but BRICS are just, again, that's this side versus this side, and there's the level above, and we have to look to the level above, and that's the real undercurrent that's controlling it. And it's great that all this surveillance and blockchain exists. I think it's fabulous. I think that we should put all our politicians on blockchains. Every contract we can put on a blockchain, that we can, it's completely transparent. There's no room for error. There's no filtering off here and filtering off there, and money laundering. And definitely put voting on a blockchain.
I think it's an important thing as well, as a clawback feature on it. If the politician tells you something and later on it turns out that they were lying, or it did materialise, or either you should be able to get reparations back from it. Hold on a second. Yes, you got money from this company.
Like Zelensky, who ran on peace. Yeah. That's what his campaign was based on. That's why he got votes, based on peace. And
as soon as he's in, nope, war.
That is not financially viable for me. So, well, we'll wrap things up for tonight. I am so glad to get you in front of the camera instead of behind, and I think we should make this a thing.
100%.
And we'll meet again in 2 weeks.
Great job.
God knows what's happening by then.